Good morning, everyone. This is Rick Garcia, Executive Director of the Colorado Department of Local Affairs. Welcome to this 78th Local Government Coordination Call, which we began back in early 2020 in response to the COVID-19 pandemic, which we have begun since, making sure that the agenda topics are about the COVID-19 post-recovery. These calls were set up to ensure the most up-to-date information from the state would be made available and shared, and was able to answer your questions, hear your feedback on critical issues, problems, solve problems, and also come to collective solutions. We certainly have intended to make sure all the latest information on recovery programs, both federal and state, new legislation, directing those dollars to impact and bring our state's economic recovery back to pre-pandemic levels. As always, please pop your questions into the chat or contact our staff if you have agenda items or questions you want to make sure do get addressed. We do have a lengthy agenda today. We have our usual recovery resiliency funding webinar series scheduled. But first, I want to start with some introductions. We have updates this morning from the topic of the Southwest Border Migrant Humanitarian Response. I'm going to quickly introduce and then turn the update over to several presenters. I want to introduce Evan Dreyer from the Mayor's Office in the City and County of Denver, D. Daniels Scriven from the Office of New Americans, which is part of the Colorado Department of Labor and Employment, and also joining us is Kevin Klein, Division Director of the Colorado Division of Homeland Security and Emergency Management. This work has been done in collaboration from the beginning with multiple levels of government and nonprofits working together to provide compassionate humanitarian aid to migrants arriving in our state by ensuring basic needs are met in a culturally competent manner, ensuring safe, sanitary, and functional sheltering is provided as needed, as well as treating all immigrants with dignity and respect. Each will give a 5-minute overview of the aid process and their respective roles. So please join me in welcoming our guests, Evan, Dee, and Kevin. I'm going to turn it over to Evan first.
Thank you, Rick. Can you all hear me okay?
All good.
Great. I am sitting in my car. Rick, thank you to you and your staff for one, the invitation, and two, for accommodating the schedule. I also have to make a presentation in a few minutes to a group of faith leaders as well. So I appreciate you juggling the agenda to fit us in. Thanks to everybody else as well. Rick, can you still hear me?
Evan, you might have dropped off a bit, but right now, yes, we can hear you.
Okay, great. Thanks to everybody for making a little bit of time for this topic too. I hope you all are warm and safe this morning, this snowy Wednesday morning. I'm just going to give a little bit of an update as to where we are, where we've been, and where we think we're headed, where we're trying to go as well. Early December, we started to see a significant increase in the number of South and Central American asylum seekers and migrants coming to Denver and to Colorado. Mayor Hancock activated our Emergency Operations Center and issued an emergency declaration in the first half of December. Since then, we have provided emergency shelter and a whole range of services to 4,700 migrants and asylum seekers. We currently have 1,100 people in our care. We are utilizing 2 motels and 1 church as the emergency shelter facilities. 1,100 people is down from the 1,900 people that we peaked at the night of January 3rd. At that time, we also were using 2 city recreation centers as emergency shelters as well. 1,100 is far fewer than 1,900, but the numbers have been creeping back up over the last couple of weeks. We are averaging 28 new arrivals every day compared to 19 departures, folks who are leaving the city each day. So that's an imbalance that we've been trying to keep at least level. Same numbers coming in as going out, but we're a little bit out of whack right now. Our expenditures to date, the city has spent $6.4 million. We're spending around $750,000 a week right now. That's our burn rate on this. Thank you to our partners at the state for $2.5 million through Rick, through your shop, to help us offset some of those costs. And we do have an application in for another 1.75 million in state ARPA funding as well. On Friday, we will be submitting an application to FEMA for their emergency food and sheltering program. Deadline is Friday to get in reimbursement requests for expenses incurred in the last quarter of 2022. So we're submitting that on Friday to try to recoup some of the costs we incurred in December. So kind of pivoting to where we're hoping to go, while we're still operating emergency shelters, we're trying to shift our attention as much as we can to longer term stays. Think extended stay sheltering, short-term temporary housing. The vast majority of the 1,100 people who are still in our care have indicated that their preference is to remain in Denver, to settle here. And so the shift from emergency overnight sheltering to extended stay, temporary housing is what we're trying to make that pivot to. We won't be able to do this by ourselves, obviously. So partnering with nonprofits, partnering with the faith community, partnering with the state, and partnering with as many local governments as we can is really going to be the secret to our success here. The city has hired 200 temporary part-time on-call workers to help us keep those shelters staffed 24/7. It is quite the operation. We essentially stood up a sheltering system that is equal in heft to our homeless shelter system. And we did that as basically an overnight startup. We do have an RFP on the street to bring in a contractor to help take over much of the day-to-day operations. That our bids on that RFP are due March 6th. We did have the initial pre-bid conference with potential vendors last week. We had pretty good turnout, so I think we're feeling good about bringing somebody on to help. And then lastly, while we are in a little bit of a stable period right now, a bit of a lull, if you will, we are anticipating that Title 42 will be lifted either by the Biden administration in May when the COVID public health and emergency declarations expire, or by the Supreme Court later in the summer. So we're looking at a late spring, summer issue with Title 42 going away, and we are all anticipating that there will be another surge at that point. So we are doing some contingency planning with our state partners right now and trying to get prepared for what another influx might look like. Rick, with that, that's a wrap for me. I am going to stay on as long as I can, and Dee and Kevin and I have done a few of these together, so you all are in good hands and are going to hear some good information from them as well.
Great. Thank you, Evan. Let's go to Dee now. And if you listeners have questions, just pop them into the chat and Miller will try to get to those. See if we can get those answered before Evan leaves. Dee?
Thank you, Rick, and thank you, Evan. Good morning, everybody. My name is Dee Daniel Scriven. I'm the director of Colorado's Office of New Americans, or ONA. And just for you that don't know, House Bill 211150 created ONA, and I joined the office in June of 2022 as its first director. And ONA is charged with being the state's point of contact for all things immigration and all things having to do with new Americans. And with this current and historic, really, migrant influx, we've never seen anything like this in Colorado. As Evan said, we have approximately 950 migrants, predominantly Venezuelan, who want to call Colorado home. So in addition to emergency management, the state believed its funds would be best used in helping those approximately 950 migrants integrate into Colorado. So we have to date given about $800,000 to Papagayo and Vive Wellness. They are two Venezuelan-led nonprofit organizations who are primarily helping families, about 350 individuals total who want to stay in Colorado. And they're also helping approximately 150 couples and singles. So a little over 500 folks who want to stay in Colorado with housing, case management, enrolling children into school, just everything that it takes when you arrive to a new place and you want to settle down. We're also in the process and hoping to get out additional funds to another nonprofit to help approximately 400 singles and couples who want to stay in Colorado. That is currently in the works. I'm really hopeful we can get that out today or tomorrow. And with both of those grants, the state will be close to approximately $1.5 million to nonprofits for our integration efforts. Again, primarily getting folks out of emergency housing into more stable housing and providing that case management that is critical. We also have created linkages between private funders and organizations like Servicios de la Raza. They just won a grant to provide mental health services to migrants. Many of these folks have been on a 3 to 4 month really arduous and traumatic journey through the Panamanian jungle, through all of Central America, and through Mexico. They've been the victims of crime, abduction, kidnapping, extortion, trafficking, all of the most awful things that you never want to endure. And so these mental health services are really going to be crucial for our migrants to get well and for their children to get well as well, because they've seen some pretty hard stuff. ONA, we have also published the Migrant Welcome Guide in English and Spanish, and this guide is intended to assist migrants and folks who do not yet have an immigration legal status but want to call Colorado home. It is not intended to be legal advice, but it gives migrants and the organizations that work with them information that they need to get started. And I will throw that into the chat once I'm done talking. We're also participating on a steering committee for Rose Community Foundation's Newcomer Fund that they established. Rose has been such a great partner, and it continues to be. It established this fund. It's taking it's not charging anything for administering the fund. We're just really happy to see it has raised so far $350,000. It's very nimble, and it's trying to get money out the door as quickly as possible to nonprofits who are helping with emergency efforts and integration efforts. And that is all I have, Rick. So I'm going to turn it back over to you, and I will pop a couple things in the chat for you guys, the welcome guide and also the Rose Community Foundation's Newcomer Fund. Thanks so much.
Thank you, Dee. Now let's go to Kevin Klein. Kevin?
Hey, good morning. Thanks, Rick. I appreciate the opportunity to be here. So mainly what we're working on is supporting Denver's efforts with their emergency sheltering. We've got some contract work that or some contractors that we've engaged to help with intake and transportation work to keep the wheels rolling, right? And as Dee said, you know, we're trying to prioritize through our grant funding, you know, moving people out of shelters and into some more stable, longer term housing. I think what's important to also add is that the administration's been very active in their advocacy role, engaging with the White House and Congress, trying to make sure that we're starting to address some of the policy issues that are causing this, but also really pushing hard on what we can do through existing authorities, or what the feds can do, DHS can do through existing authorities to get more of these people eligible for work. And it's one of the big things that the governor's really pushing, making sure that we're doing that. We are in our shop administering the ARPA grants to nonprofits and other, in any local government or any other service provider that could apply. Right now, most of that I think is probably spoken for. That's about 3 million that we're pushing out through that. And then we are applying as a state for the Emergency Food and Shelter Program, which is a program that FEMA funds, a board that then distributes that nationwide. They plus that up to just about 800 million to help take care of those that have had some sort of recent encounter with DHS. And I think also, just to hit on, the administration's been beating the bushes on philanthropic support, and so we've got some of that going on. Our next work is we're looking at planning for a potential surge with depending on what happens to Title 42. I do think that with what the changes that the Biden administration put in place at the border, we have seen a dramatic decrease in the number of crossings. And so I think that's good news, but we don't know what that's going to look like if Title 42, if it goes away with the public health emergency, or if the court orders it to go away before that. So we're trying to work on that through some contingency planning as to emergency sheltering. With that, Rick, I'll stand by for any questions.
Great, thank you, Kevin. There were a few questions in the chat and a couple in the Q&A. I don't know if, looks like some of those were getting answered. And I don't know if you've been monitoring those. Is there anything that any of our panelists can address directly?
Yes, thank you. Yeah, couple here I'll start with. The one is, I'm curious about the intake needs assessments for people who are choosing to stay. Can you give us a sense of what kind of info is being collected and what needs have been identified? And who would like to answer?
Yeah.
Dee, do you want to take that, or do you want me to?
Sure, I'll start. Thanks, Anne, and thanks, Kevin. Great question. We are leaving, at least at the state level, we are leaving that assessment more to the nonprofits who are working directly with the migrants who are arriving. They have built Papagayo and Vive Wellness. I had chatted this in the inbox. They had never been in the business of resettling new arrivals, but they really jumped in heart first and have been completely committed to helping this population as they've arrived. And they've really built trust with the migrants who have arrived. And so over the weeks and months, migrants have started sharing things that they've endured on their journey. Everybody needs housing, everybody needs a job, but then some of those mental health issues that I raised, things that they've seen and endured have started boiling up to the surface, and families will just start sharing what they need. I don't know, they do have questions with intake, but that's something that the state hasn't fully explored, just because we're leaving it up to them to do the work of resettling our new neighbors.
Indeed, I'll just add that as part of our intake process, we really focus on some basic, essential needs. Do they have access and functional needs, medical needs, basic clothing, things like that. Just kind of those immediate needs. We as part of our intake process, we try to make sure we're asking those questions and then getting referrals to make sure those very basic needs are met.
Okay,
Just
good.
sorry, to just build on that a little bit, Dee mentioned that we were leaving a lot of the needs assessments and work to the nonprofits. One of the challenges, as much as the nonprofits have been trying to help, we have not been in this business before as a community to this extent. We're not a border city. Our nonprofits aren't geared towards the kinds of needs at this level, this volume, as they are in a border city. So trying to essentially, build an airplane while we're flying it is what's happening here. We wouldn't be where we are as successful as we've been without the Papagayos and the Vive Wellnesses. But even they're about maxed out. Hopefully some of the funding that Dee mentioned will support them, allow them to keep going, and help build some capacity for them and for others as well.
Thank you. We've got time for a couple more quick questions here before we need to get moving with the agenda. Kevin, you touched on this about kind of the temporary work visas, but there's a question just about if there's anything more you can add about what the state's doing on that regard.
Ann, could you repeat that?
Yeah, so the question is just, I'm wondering about temporary work visas. Is that a possibility for people who are interested in staying here locally?
So that's been what we've been advocating for, but it has to apply to a larger population that needs to be defined by DHS. So yeah, that is a big process, and I think our role in that is really advocacy. And the governor's been really on top of keep pushing to do whatever we can to get them legal work status, and then that. Then a lot of the other problems that we're facing kind of go away, right? That's the the kind of the work that we've been doing, trying to get them, being advocates to start getting some of those work permit processes in place.
Okay, thank you. And Dee has answered a couple of the questions in the chat. So on what you can do to help, and there's some great links there for volunteering. So please take a look at her responses. And I think we've gotten through these. I'll turn it back to you, Dave, and thank all of you for being part of this meeting and the Q&A.
Okay,
thanks for having us.
Yeah, thank you all.
Thank you.
For your time, effort, and your timely presentation today. Have a great rest of the day.
Thank you.
Jumping back to the agenda, I have a DOLA quick update, primarily on Proposition 123, which was the ballot question in November that generated a revenue stream for affordable housing throughout the state. I know there's been many questions and commentary that have started to flow in both to DOLA as well as other agencies involved with implementing this proposition. So let me provide you with just a very quick update. The first year anticipated volume of 123 revenue, and that would be this year, 2023, is 145 million. That is split between two functional areas, DOLA and the Office of Economic Development and International Trade, which has recently announced their administrator for the housing piece for their 60% of the funds will go to the Colorado Housing and Finance Authority. We are projecting that about a $290 million revenue stream will begin in fiscal year 2024. What we're doing currently is working through all the various elements in the ballot language and identifying where we need clarification and preparing to launch these programs by July 1st of this year. As I mentioned, 40% of the funds will come to DOLA through our Division of Housing in three primary areas: homelessness response, home ownership opportunities, and local planning capacity to implement some of the requirements that the ballot language will require local governments to do in order to be eligible to receive these funds. Office of Economic Development and International Trade and CHAFA have two programs. That's in the 60% of the funds. Lending and equity investments in affordable housing. That's both debt and equity opportunities, as well as manufactured, modular, and innovative housing financing support. And we are meeting diligently weekly, the groups that will receive these dollars to help fine tune the preparation for implementation. And if there's any additional, potentially any kind of statutory changes that might need to be considered to help us implement the program more effectively. All this is under discussion. If you have questions or comments about this, put them in the chat. We'll make sure that we get your responses. Please anticipate that we'll be providing regular updates on the Prop 123 rollout at these monthly local government coordination calls. So before I turn this back over to our next agenda item, just a reminder, in the chat also is the microgrids and community resilience planning grants application that just opened, as well as the recent updates from our state demographer's office on the new definition related to new urban areas that has been established by the US Census as a result of the 2020 count. So with that, I'm happy to now turn this over to Shel Sabo from our Colorado Resiliency Office that will introduce our regular Pathways to Recovery and Resiliency Funding webinar series, which today's topic is energy funding opportunities. Shel.
Great, thank you so much, Rick. I really appreciate it. I'm just going to share my screen here so folks can see the webinar. And then just for folks who are joining us, the goal of this webinar series is to break down state and local funding opportunities to better help local governments and community partners navigate and access potential solutions for the challenges they may be facing. So today's topic is really around energy funding. So we have a bunch of great speakers from our Colorado Energy Office, as well as one of our speakers from the Colorado Resiliency Office. We're going to speak to several programs. So we are welcoming Christine Berg, John Parks, and Julia Masters from our office to start that presentation. So Christine, I'll go ahead and turn it over to you.
Hello, good morning, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us today. We have quite a number of slides, so I'll try to get through them as quickly as I can. Next slide, please. Thank you. That's me. So of course, you know about the Infrastructure Investment Act. Huge bill, transformative. And then we got a second bill. So we'll start with this one. Next slide, please. So even though this was passed in November of 2021, we're still waiting on some guidance and there's still a lot of things in process, but we do have several grants and programs that are coming through, including the Energy Efficiency Revolving Loan Fund Grant, EECBG, which I'm sure you're familiar with, the Grid Resilience and Reliability Program, Building Codes Implementation for Efficiency and Resilience. So we are definitely going to apply for some of those funds. And then grants for energy efficiency and renewable energy improvements at public school facilities. So you can see there's some timelines on there, many of which are happening right now, spring of 2023. Next slide, please. So the Energy Efficiency Revolving Loan Fund Capitalization Program is really great for, there's a small business component to this, but as it states here, it's a grant program under our office for states to conduct commercial or residential energy audits or upgrades and retrofits. As you know, so much of our greenhouse gas emissions come from the built environment, so the retrofitting piece of this is essential. It'll go through our office with priority given to achieving energy efficiency improvements, and 60% is allocated to the highest per capita energy using states. So I think we're still waiting on a lot of guidance for that, but I wanted to flag that Department of Energy will allocate on a competitive basis loans to eligible businesses and homeowners. 25% of there will be additional funding for direct grants to small businesses and low-income homeowners. So there's an equity piece in there as well. Next slide, please. EECBG. So there is formula funds that are going directly to cities and counties that qualify. The purpose of this program is to reduce fossil fuel emissions, obviously to improve energy efficiency and reduce energy use. So that's kind of the framework for the EECBG program. Next slide, please. So here's eligible uses, and it's a very broad program, which is nice. It can be used for transportation stuff, obviously energy efficiency retrofits, revolving loan funds. So kind of runs through a lot of those different eligible uses. Next slide, please. I just wanted to flag that we, as the state, are getting 2.075 million, 60% of which we need to allocate directly to local governments or Indian tribes that were ineligible for direct formula grants. So that's the priority funding, which will, of course, predominantly be outside of the Front Range, mountain communities, rural communities in the state. So you'll sort of see how that, if you're a community, you probably already received notice that you will get direct formula funds. If not, you would qualify for our funding that's coming through the State Energy Office. And our plan for these funds, we would like to provide some support for staff capacity. So really working with communities that need help in program development and implementation. So next slide, please. I'm going to defer now to Julia with Department
Thank you,
of
Christine.
Yep.
Hey y'all, Julia Masters with DOLA. I am going to just touch briefly about this high level formula funding and then go a little bit deeper into the microgrids program that I'm administering. So the state of Colorado has been allocated formula funding. As you can see here, we have a 2-year budget that we have proposed, which includes a partial set aside for microgrids. These federal dollars will be available for both rural and non-rural utilities, which is unlike the just state dollar rural utility program that I will talk about on the next slide. We also have funding set aside for rural and small community flexible uses, so grid hardening projects that will make the system more resilient to extreme weather or natural disasters. This can include monitoring and control technologies, utility pole management, and other things. We also have a set aside for advanced monitoring, which would incentivize communities to develop and operate smart grids. And then the last piece is for studies and TA. So DOE allows for a 5% admin. And so we will be using that to conduct more studies around Colorado's grid reliability. And the matching funds are the blue boxes at the bottom of this chart. So you can see how this kind of all came together. Next slide, please. So this, oh, I don't have that slide on my deck. Could you go to the next slide about microgrids? There we go. Thank you. So I am administering the Microgrids for Community Resilience Grant Program. House dollars have been set aside to establish this program. It's from the general fund. And as you saw in the previous slide, it's being leveraged as match for federal funding. Only rural, cooperative, and municipally owned utilities are eligible to apply for this program. We are currently accepting applications for planning grants through the end of March, and those have a max award of $36,000 with 25% match required, cash match only. And then our construction and implementation grants will be opening later in 2023, and that will be open to all utilities. So that's an opportunity for folks who are not just a part of a rural cooperative or municipally owned utility to access this program. And you can see we have the website listed here and some updates you can sign up for if you'd like to learn more. We held a webinar yesterday with some really great technical assistance offerings free of charge from DOE contractors. So if you're curious about what could be out there to support your community exploring more grid reliability opportunities, please go check out that webinar. There's some really great information there. And I will turn it back over to Christine. Thanks.
Great. And so one of my colleagues, John Parks, is with us today as well. He's a policy analyst for electricity market and transmission with the Energy Office. So he's going to give you some information on this program.
Thank you, Christine. Yeah, we're very excited about the Grid Resiliency and Innovation Partnership Program, which is also part of the infrastructure bill. the funding opportunity announcement came out in mid-November, and we've been working really hard to submit some quality concept papers, and we're moving on to the application portion of the process. We have submitted 2 concept papers. One is for the Smart Grid Grant Program, and this is a coalition of 19 different utilities that represent 70% of Colorado's land area and 64% of our population. And it's really focused on allowing the utilities to acquire the technology they need to mitigate wildfires. And that's all kinds of smart grid systems, as well as ways to redirect and shut off power to minimize blackouts and anticipate wildfires as well. So with HD wildfire or HD cameras and weather stations. So it's a one-to-one match of the potentially $50 million. So it could be up to $100 million investment or more. The second program that we're also working on is the Grid Innovation Grant. And this is focused on transmission and microgrid in the San Luis Valley. The image you have here on the left is the partnership utilities for the Smart Grid Grant application. And on the right, this is a map of the current transmission in southern central Colorado, with Colorado Springs and the Front Range on the right side, and then San Luis Valley on the left side. You can see that there's only one spot where the transmission goes into the San Luis Valley, and it's a great solar resource. It's also could really benefit from increased construction of solar farms in that area. So we're working with a number of different utilities, local groups, and state agencies to hopefully get up to a $250 million grant to make that happen. I'll pass it back to you, Christine.
Thanks, John. That was great. So the Inflation Reduction Act, this is a big one. So we're going to go through all the facets of this here. Huge bill, expected to reduce U.S. emissions by 40% by 2030. The beauty of the IRA is that it's not capped. So as much as we can take advantage of all these funds, we can really, again, be transformative with the work that we do. A lot of guidance still needs to be issued. There'll be tax credits and grants to help families install heat pumps, solar. I'll get into a bit of that. We will be administering some of those rebates, and some will be administered at the federal level. So it says partnerships with local governments will be needed on technical assistance to make the most of this funding. That is absolutely true. And then we will have some funding to help local governments adopt the latest building codes, which goes really well with our legislation to move towards the 2021 International Energy Conservation Codes in the next few years. Next slide, please. So here are some of the programs. The High Energy Efficiency Home Rebate Program. We're still waiting on guidance for that, and also the Home Energy Performance-Based Home Rebates. So you'll see here, many of these are for lower income families and middle income. And then also the Home Energy Efficiency Contractor Training Grants, which is absolutely critical. We need more contractors that are leveled up in how to install heat pumps and heat pump water heaters and all the electrification that we're going to see coming. So that's all very exciting. Next slide, please. These are just some additional programs that won't necessarily come through our office. We've got the Assistance for Latest and Zero Building Energy Code Adoption, Environmental Justice Community Block Grant, that's through the EPA, and the Climate Pollution Reduction Grants. We're looking at putting in some partnership with the Colorado Clean Energy Fund to get some of those funds as well for the state. Next slide, please. All right, so this is the big news with the IRA. 30% tax credit on the residential side for the installation of rooftop or community solar and ground source heat pumps. And you'll see here up to 50% for projects that pay prevailing wages. 30% direct pay. This is the one I highlighted because this is the first time ever there's an option for tax exempt organizations to actually get a rebate or a form of a rebate for solar, geothermal, and battery storage. So if you have a local government project where you're putting on solar, you would qualify for a 30% direct pay from the IRS. Up to $25 to $100 per dwelling unit that meets Energy Star multifamily new construction requirements, and up to $5,000 per dwelling unit that meets Zero Energy Ready Home requirements. So if you're looking at affordable housing in your community, this is certainly, we can give you some more information on that. Affordable housing energy grants, as you can see, to support energy, water efficiency improvements, renewable energy, electrification, all the good stuff for affordable housing specifically. Next slide, please. All right, here's some state funding coming through the State Energy Office that was part of the state legislative agenda last year that passed. We've got the Geothermal Energy Grant Program. This is for single structures, community district heating, which is very cool, and geothermal electricity generation grants. So the important thing to know about this is that this is for residential folks as well as for local governments to tap into for projects. What I really want to highlight is that this is also funding for scoping studies, so planning grants to determine the greenhouse gas potential reduction, and that can be up to 100,000. So that's really helpful. So yeah, this program is in the process of getting set up. We're hopeful that some components of this will be set up early summer. But this is probably one of the first sort of statewide geothermal grant programs in the country. So we're pretty excited about it. Next slide, please. Clean Air Program. This is more specific to the industrial and manufacturing sector. Technical assessments to identify greenhouse gas reduction opportunities, voluntary air pollution reduction project costs coverage. So really looking at some of the larger polluters and figuring out how to ameliorate some of those sort of greenhouse gas pollution reduction. And I think the technical assistance on this is really valuable. And it says where at industrial sites throughout Colorado with grant funding projects prioritized in DI communities and non-attainment areas, which is essentially the entire Front Range. So anyways, that's just something to make note of. Next slide, please. We have Cannabis Resource Optimization Program. This is, as we know, the marijuana industry is one of the most energy intensive kind of industries in the state. So that's where this program came out of. And it is, I believe, let's see here, facilities must be located outside Black Hills, Platte River, or Excel. So that's just important to know. And technical audits and opportunity to finance energy efficiency or renewable energy projects. So that's just something I wanted to put in there in case you have that industry in your community. Next slide, please. High efficiency electric heating and appliances, HEHA. This is grant funding through the state for essentially, installation of electric heating appliances, electric vehicles, electric ready infrastructure. So, and also important to note, at least 30% of the awarded funds need to support low-income DI communities or just transition communities. And so again, this is another opportunity to really kind of level up and reduce operating costs through upgrades, heat pumps, electrification. Next slide, please. Public building electrification grant. I'm very excited about this one. This is retrofitting, I think also for new construction, but it's a way to really get your public buildings electrified. So this could include high efficiency electric equipment for heating. I think that should say cooling, but it could be cooking as well. And electrical installations and upgrades needed to install high efficiency equipment. So, and it says here other innovative building heating technologies that could be geothermal. It's really retrofitting buildings to ensure that you can get, again, lower energy costs and move forward getting off natural gas. Next slide, please. Okay, state tax credits, I just briefly wanted to mention. The state is in the process of developing this. It's a 10% assignable tax credit on heat pumps, heat pump water heaters, and all associated equipment for residents. So that's a residential tax credit. Next slide, please. Okay, so this is just new programs that we have through the Energy Office. This is the Electric Vehicle Readiness Planning Grant, and this is brand new, and the RFA will be released February 27th. That's a live link. So this is funding for local and county governments to develop EV readiness plans. So you can really figure out what kind of funding you need and tap into that as well. So that, and it also says here, prepare for and encourage community adoption of electric vehicles. Next slide, please. So on that, we've got grant programs, Charge Ahead Colorado for construction installation of EV charging. And I wanted to note that we have recharge coaches, which help they're embedded in your communities, and they're really education based to understand for your residents to understand financial, environmental, sort of the reasons why electric vehicles make sense. So they're throughout the state, so you can tap into them as a resource. And then I have a link here for our electric bike grant program. We a couple of years ago did a kind of a pilot program in the Denver metro area, and it was so incredibly popular. It's essentially giving e-bikes to folks that needed it for transportation around the metro area for work. And so we've expanded that statewide, and we'll be launching a much larger program for e-bikes for DI communities, which is pretty exciting. Next slide. Building code training and technical assistance. So we actually have a great no-cost program with the Energy Office to provide support for jurisdictions on building codes. If you need to adopt new building codes, or you're looking at what the impact would be, we have this sort of technical support training for staff. And we also have an Energy Codes Adoption Toolkit and a codes hotline. Now, I wanted to clarify the codes hotline is not just for energy codes, and they can get back, I think they get back, our consultant gets back within 24 to 48 hours on those questions. This framework is really helpful when we consider that there's legislation that passed that we are now working towards state line building codes, which we've never had before. So there will be funding and support for communities to adopt the 2021 IECC codes. And so that'll be like our baseline state building code requirement, at least on the energy code side. And so know that there's more information to come. There's an advisory board that is putting together the details of that program. But in the meantime, as communities are moving, there are some communities that are moving to all electric building codes. Know that this is a resource for stretch codes as well. Next slide, please. I guess that's it. Please let us know if you have any questions. Ida May is also on. She is our expert on the federal funding side for the Energy Office. And as you can see, contact information for Julia, for microgrids, and then John and I from the Energy Office. So look forward to your questions.
Okay, well, I'll go ahead and jump in for the Q&A, and want to also thank our panelists, packed full of great information that we will get out to all that have signed up for these calls. So the first question is for Christine, and this is going back to a slide on the IRA tax credits, and in regards to the tax exempt organization, 30% direct pay. So the question is, does the direct pay for municipalities go directly to the municipality, or does it go through the developer?
You know, we're still waiting on guidance from the Department of Energy on that. I would imagine it goes directly to the local government, and same with an NGO or nonprofit organization, any tax exempt. So I would imagine you would have to pay for in advance, you know, like any rebate, you would pay the full cost of, say, the solar project, and then you would apply for that direct payment back.
Okay. Another question, any idea when the affordable housing energy efficiency funding might become available? Christine, do you have a sense?
I don't, that's not coming through the energy office. So I just have it on there as more informative. I don't know if anyone from Department of Housing would have an answer to that.
We can check on that. I don't think we have anyone on today, so we'll get back on that question.
Got it.
Thank you. All right, I'm monitoring the chat and Q&A, and I don't see any other questions. So, last call here to type in your questions. And I have to say, Christine, my favorite acronym of all of those is the HEHA acronym. So,
Yes.
way
it's a
to
lot
go.
So many acronyms, but at least that one is fun. Yeah, it's crazy how I just want to make a note of how much was legislated last year really dovetails in with the federal funding. They really kind of partner up to make robust incentives for a lot of this to move forward, and that's one of them. So yeah, it's exciting. Again, we're still in development on some of those programs, but know that we'll get that information out to local governments as soon as it's available.
All right, well, I will turn this back over to Rick for any final closing comments.
Great, thanks, Ann. And kudos to Christine, John, and Julia. Thanks for that timely presentation. A lot of good information there and good resources. The state's clearly moving in the energy efficiency arena in a variety of construction, housing included spaces. So we look forward to seeing those programs tapped effectively as we go forward. So if there's no additional questions, I think we'll probably adjourn a bit early. Just want to remind everyone that these meetings or calls, local government coordination calls, take place the third Wednesday of each month. So the next meeting will be next month in March, and ironically, it does fall on the 15th. So meanwhile, if you have questions or comments that we can answer intermittently, please put those in the chat or reach out to our DOLA staff, our CRO staff that organizes these calls, and we'll get those answered for you in between. So with that, enjoy the rest of this beautiful, snowy, brisk Colorado day. Enjoy the rest of it, and we'll see you next month. Bye-bye.